whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong, or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called, or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
With the onset of NIL and the transfer portal, it is allowing players to develop further in college, and guys that would maybe be stuck on the bench at a power program and not have as much shine are having the ability to find themselves in the spotlight.
Lane Kiffin came out and said we need to get bigger and more physical in terms of the offensive defensive lines, and that's why he went out and recruited that talent.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. Mm-hmm. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome in, Game Time Decisions with you here on a Tuesday on SportsGrid. Plenty to get to. NBA playoffs. We have NHL playoffs, full baseball board, and some WNBA. I really want to dive into the Eastern Conference Finals, which came to a conclusion last night as the Celtics sweep the Indiana Pacers. But before we do that, a quick pick for the people. And I'm going to go with the LA Sparks team total over 79.5 on the road against the Indiana Fever. I think this is a nice little buy low spot. You think about what this team total was when the Sparks were at home against the Indiana Fever, as that was at a 165. And we have a same 165, but a 1.5 point spread is now 5.5. And I think this Sparks offense is in for a bounce back spot specifically against this opponent, having shot 5 of 24 from 3 in that game, including the starting backcourt for the Sparks going a combined 0 for 12 from deep. So I trust this LA offense. I don't know how much I trust them on the 5.5. I do think they could stay inside that number here against the Fever, whose offense is still a little more up and down right now. But I'm on the LA Sparks team total to start things off here, WNBA style. I am also, by the way, on Shohei Ohtani for Dinger Tuesday. But it was a part of a plan that may be burned. A doubleheader today between the Mets and the Dodgers in Queens, wind blowing out, expected for both games. So I played Ohtani at plus 310 game 1, plus 340 game number 2. Ohtani is supposed to be benched in game 2. Maybe he pinch hits, which would be a bit of a disaster. I wouldn't have been as interested in playing Ohtani for this first game. My thought was, give me 8 to 10 at-bats for Shohei with good hitting conditions, and he can put one out here in New York. Now that's completely trimmed down. His fourth at-bat of the game is coming up right now with 2 on. Hopefully he puts one out here and makes it worth it, because this game is also not delivered any runs. A Lindor 2-run shot, the only runs we've seen so far in Mets-Dodgers. Again, hopefully Ohtani can put one out right now. Pitching change going on in that game. As I said, NBA playoffs tonight certainly taking center stage, Minnesota and Dallas. A best bet in that game that I'm really excited about. The head-to-head markets as a whole are something we'll dive into. But the winner tonight, if it is the Dallas Mavericks, would lock in the NBA Finals as Boston secured their spot up against the Indiana Pacers last night with another win. And I think it is fair to start by giving Boston their credit. So many Celtics fans frustrated that that's not what they're being given throughout this run. 105-102 your final score. Jason Tatum with 26, 13, and 8. Jaylen Brown with 29 and 6. And Jaylen Brown wins Eastern Conference Finals MVP, something that's very important we'll expand on in just a moment. But as I said, give Boston their credit. Because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown right now, I think it would be fair to label this two as the most reliable duo in the sport. It doesn't mean they're the best. It does not mean they are the most successful. But as far as being able to count on these guys to get you to a level, who else would you turn to? Giannis and Dame? Certainly not. That's only a one-year run. That was eliminated in round one. You want to use Chris Middleton? You can. A lot of injuries for those two. Jokic and Murray, more successful. Didn't make it out of round two this year. Less conference finals appearances, less NBA finals appearances. Same story with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. A better 1-2, but not a more reliable 1-2. And you could chalk that up to the Eastern Conference if you'd like. But Boston's been doing this throughout. And while this year's run for Boston, which we're going to talk about, has been littered with light competition through injury, let's not pretend this team has not had impressive wins during this run. 5 out of the 7 years since they've drafted Jason Tatum, pairing him with Jaylen Brown, they've been in the conference finals. A Game 7 win in Miami that clinched their ticket to the finals when they played the Warriors. Game 6 in Milwaukee. Game 6 in Philadelphia. This is a team that, again, has plenty of important pieces on the resume. And a sweep in the conference finals is still a sweep in the conference finals, and that's what we just saw for the Celtics against the Indiana Pacers. Year in, year out, you can bank on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown getting to kind of the bare minimum of the expectations. And it says a lot that this year's bare minimum was making the finals, but here we are in the NBA Finals with the Boston Celtics. Now, as far as the added context of it all, Boston fans who say you play who is in front of you, you are correct. There's nothing the Celtics can do about the fact that Embiid couldn't get out of round one, Giannis didn't play in round one, the Knicks didn't beat the Pacers, Donovan Mitchell didn't stay healthy. There's nothing they can do about that. There isn't. But we can also only judge the Celtics off of who is in front of them. And forget about the fact that it was a 6th seed that they played in the conference finals. It has nothing to do with what you believe of the Indiana Pacers or the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Miami Heat. It has to do with the fact that in all 3 series, the opponent lost their best player for multiple games. The Celtics have played 14 playoff games so far. In 9 of the 14 games, the other team didn't have their best player. That is a fact. Jimmy missed the whole series, Donovan missed 2 full games, and Tyrese Halliburton missed 2 full games, plus a lot of game number 2. So it becomes very difficult then to give Boston a world of credit. Because, and yes, it's fair to say, if Boston smashed all of these teams, that it would have been met with, they're playing terrible basketball teams. Which is maybe a little unfair. But it would have been better probably than what Boston did deliver. Some Celtic faithful, backers, fans, supporters saying, hey, they proved they could win in the clutch. I am not overly excited about being in clutch games because Andrew Nembhard is continuously getting loose against your backcourt that boasts not 1 but 2 guys that made all NBA defense. I'm not overly excited about that fact. Because the Celtics, and we talk about expectations, and yes, they made the finals, but let's talk about game-to-game expectations. 14 games, 7-7 against the spread. 3-6 since they got past Miami, 1-6 against the number in their last 7 games. There's your story. And again, I know there are probably now just the fans say, God, it's not about the betting. But it gives us an indicator. Is Boston meeting expectations? Are they getting past expectations? No. Not with what's on the court against them. They're playing a shorthanded Pacers team, laying 7 nightly, and they can't extend. It is a series that we left saying, not, wow, the Pacers were completely mismatched. It was, wow, this series could be 3-1 Indy going back to Boston. So you end up in a situation where now not only is it becoming difficult to give Boston credit, but it looks like there are causes for concern. However, if Boston is a product of their environment and playing down to competition, then the finals should bring the best out of this team. And they will be returning Kristaps Porzingis, which is incredibly beneficial for Boston. But if this team is going to get the job done, they are going to need their best player to be their best player. As Jason Tatum was upset last night by Jaylen Brown. And good for JB. But if Jason Tatum is not holding the Finals MVP trophy at the end of that series, it means Boston lost the series. We'll be right back talking Minnesota and Dallas next. Using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back with you right here on Game Time Decisions. It is a Tuesday night. I'm Kevin Walsh. And we will expand on Boston as the build-up to the finals continues to get closer. And the Indiana Pacers are something that we can perhaps mix in throughout the night. But I think it is important we now get to the Western Conference Finals game in Dallas. By the way, for anybody out there who got involved in the over 33.5 road wins bet, we have been given 4 so far. A win tonight for the Dallas Mavericks would need 3 in the NBA Finals, which I think is doable. A win for Minnesota is the dream, because I think Dallas, who's not lost back-to-back games, could close things out, very much so, in Minnesota. That would put us at 4 for this series, and we would only need 1 road win, which would be stunning if we didn't see it, but we would only need 1 road win in the NBA Finals. So a huge game tonight for anybody who is betting on that market. For the actual game and who's actually going to win, I find myself pulling back and forth, but leaning towards Minnesota. It feels a little bit like a blowout to me tonight, either direction. Either Minnesota folds, or Dallas has an off night, no Derek Lively, Luka maybe his first bad game of the year against this Timberwolves defense, and Minnesota can grab one. I'm tempted by some alt spreads, maybe minus 8.5. Either direction, play them both, see if it looks worth my while here. I do wonder, as Minnesota is getting set to go out there tonight, if there are any adjustments they believe can start to turn the tide for them. Is there anything that they can do against this Dallas offense to slow them down? Because while the offensive woes have been discussed plenty for Minnesota, Cat has been atrocious. Anthony Edwards not been good enough, neither has Rudy Gobert. It is the defense that is killing Minnesota, because it is the defense that which Minnesota is built on. The league's best defense, undoubtedly, and we saw it at work in the series against the Nuggets. And they've had just nothing for Luka specifically, but it feels like Dallas as a whole. I've wondered if they would throw Jaden McDaniels on Kyrie. He can't guard Luka. I don't know how much more evidence Minnesota needs. Sometimes, despite being a great defensive player, you end up in a bad matchup, or against a guy who there's nothing you can do with. Minnesota should know this well from literally the last series they just played, in which Rudy Gobert was put in a torture rack consistently by Jokic. If McDaniels, though, would be more effective on Kyrie, you could perhaps prevent him from outplaying Anthony Edwards on a nightly basis. Because that's what's happening. Kyrie is outplaying it in this series, undoubtedly. Heading in, people wondered how the Kyrie versus Karl Anthony Towns matchup would go, and Karl Anthony Towns is being outplayed probably by P.J. Washington, maybe even Derrick Jones Jr. So if you throw McDaniels on Kyrie, it could be a pivot. I mentioned some of these head-to-head markets, and I'm wanting to fade Kyrie tonight a bit. His points prop is 23.5. There, in the head-to-head markets, though, you could find Anthony Edwards at minus 3.5 points, or you could find Karl Anthony Towns at plus 3.5. And that now is up to 4.5, and that probably will make this easy enough for me. Because if Kyrie's going to go under 23.5, can we get Kyrie into under 20 points? We've seen that happen for Kai throughout the postseason. The ceiling met, not by the floor, though there have been some floor games, but an under. He's not given us consistent and repeated overs for Kyrie Irving. And one of these two guys on Minnesota, I just have to believe, is going to have an efficient night from the floor. I've talked at nonstop, and I think, it's now well known about Anthony Edwards and his lack of efficiency from the field. I will read to you his field goal percentage in the last 6 games. 33%, 47%, 25%, 38%, 29%, 46%. Oh my gosh. It's nightmarish. It's bad. But I know for a fact Ant is super tired. I don't know if Karl's injured. He limped at the end of, I believe, Game 5 against Denver, or if he's overthinking it. But Karl Anthony Towns didn't have some efficiency drop-off throughout the back end of the Denver series like Ant did. He has just been unforgivable so far in this series against the Dallas Mavericks. 6 of 20 from the field in Game 1, 2 of 9 from 3. 4 of 16 from the field in Game 2, 1 of 5 from 3. Last game, 5 of 18 from the field and 0 of 8 from 3. It's pathetic what we've seen from Cat. But Cat, quite frankly, tonight could shoot 80%, score 27 points, and it would still overall be a disgustingly inefficient series. So I think that Karl Anthony Towns plus 4.5 bet will make its way into my pocket. The bet I know I will be placing tonight is a combo bet of Rudy Gobert and Daniel Gafford over 18.5 rebounds combined. I absolutely love this one. And I know last game out, they didn't get close. I know, pretty ironic. 3 Daniel Gafford rebounds, 6 Rudy Gobert boards. This is buy low city. This, for me, is the exact market to be in with the absence of Derek Lively. Daniel Gafford is going to need to play more. And if Daniel Gafford gets us 30 minutes, 10 boards is potentially out there. Rudy Gobert could put Gafford in foul trouble. And if he does, it could be a 15-rebound night for Rudy Gobert, who should be bouncing back in the boards category regardless. Plus, Rudy has had an easier time with Gafford, it feels, than Lively. So I really like Rudy, but I think Gafford is very smart to include, and I am playing him over with Gobert, 18.5 rebounds at a minus 105 price on a combination bet. We're going to take a quick break here on Game Time Decisions. When we come back, we'll hit the NHL playoffs and your Major League Baseball board. Using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back right here, Game Time Decisions. Going to get to some key items here. We'll do the baseball board as well. 6:35 start is your first upcoming game with Baltimore and Boston. I lost out on a Pittsburgh-Detroit bet due to some weather, which takes that game off the card, but still plenty to get to. WNBA, you see, surrounding an NHL playoff game. We mentioned the quick pick tonight comes from Fever Sparks with a Sparks team total over 79.5. The Idiotic Fever looking for their second win of the season, and it would be both victories coming against this Sparks team. For the Fever, this would be considered the light part of the schedule. There's still plenty of tough games, but they're home for a little stretch here, and they're not playing the teams with the top 4 odds on a nightly basis to win the WNBA championship, so we will see how they handle that. Again, a few other spots on the WNBA board. Nothing necessarily jumped out. The Chicago Sky are in action, and I keep wondering when Angel Reese is going to break out for an efficient basketball game. Maybe it's just not going to happen, but the Sky as a whole have been a scrappy team, and you see that reflected in this line here tonight, getting only 3 points at home from a Seattle Storm team with a lot of expectations on them heading into this season. Let's shoot it back over to your NHL playoff game as the hockey with the New York Rangers trying to get involved here and go up 3-1 on Florida. But for the Rangers, job done. I mean, look, yes, you can lose at home to Florida. You already have, right? But you had to get one here against the Panthers, and the pressure is on, and the price shows it. -170 on Florida is very much so they can't lose this game number. I find the total fascinating at 5.5. Under game 1, under game 2, people looking for a carbon copy game 3, and a shootout broke out in that hockey game. 5-4 final with the Rangers winning it in the second straight overtime game of the series. I look at this game, and I wonder what we see out of Bobrovsky, the goaltender for Florida. Perhaps more shots tonight for the Rangers, leading to more saves. I am on, of course, this Igor Shesterkin bet we talked about over the weekend for 20 saves in every game in this series. A -215 number that has since climbed up now to -290 after he checked that box once again against the Florida Panthers in Game 3. You see your series price there with the Rangers going back to favorites against Florida due to now having home ice in this series. It is interesting, though, that number a bit stronger than the pre-series price when the Rangers had home ice. So it looks like the books buying in a little bit to what New York is bringing to the table. Major League Baseball board, again, I mentioned lost out on a Pirates plus a half a run in the first 5. That was taken off the card. We do have... Is Ohtani going to get up here or what now? We do have a 2-2 baseball game with the Mets and the Dodgers as the Mets blew another game. I mean, this is just a nightmare season. Not many teams 50 games in want to cancel their year more than the Mets. The Angels probably. Outside of that, I mean, my oh my. 7 shutout from Tyler McGill, at least from the earned runs category. This is just ugly. Ugly stuff here. From the New York Mets. But let's run through the baseball card. Money lines here. Twins, +114. Cole Reagans was a home dog against Skubal. I understand that Woods Richardson is not that same caliber pitcher, but I'll take its +114 shot here on a home dog in Minnesota. Nathan Eovaldi gets the ball here for the Texas Rangers at -130. I'm going to get involved with the Rangers and Nasty Nate against Brandon Pfaadt. I am always looking to fade Brandon Pfaadt, quite frankly. And I think this is a nice number here. If Eovaldi wasn't pitching for the first time in 3 to 4 weeks, this could be closer to -160. So I'm going to take my chances that Eovaldi comes out with the good stuff. Late night Mariners, -125 with Luis Castillo getting the ball. I understand Hunter Brown has been better over his last 4 or 5 starts. Don't care. Cheap number on Luis Castillo at home, -125. And then a big -185 Yankees number. Firstly, I think this number could be bigger. So just because it's -185 does not mean there's not value, but also little up 2 special for those who do get involved in that market. Yanks go 2-0 in the first here off of Juan Soto. Dinger Tuesday. And then that bet just automatically cashes. Speaking of Dinger Tuesday, Tom Vecchio right around the corner here on Game Time Decisions. Get his picks for Dinger Tuesday, NBA, NHL. We know that Tom will have us covered. Coach James Young will be in the mix as well. It's a busy night. It's Game Time Decisions on SportsGrid. We'll be right back. using the parlays against one another, right? And being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're live. It's Game Time Decisions. Tom Vecchio in the mix with us here. Tom, excited to talk on a Tuesday. Plenty to get to.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Full slate of games in the MLB tonight. Two huge games when it comes to the NHL and NBA. Like you said, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, let's get into this here with Dinger Tuesday. I'm on Seager and Soto tonight. Where are you looking for the home runs?
Love the Soto call because Griffin Canning is terrible, but let's go to Josh Naylor for the Guardians. You know, they're at Coors Field. It's obviously, we don't need to say everything about Coors Field. Fantastic hitting environment, but most importantly, he has a good number. It's up at plus 430, which is not always a spot we can find for really strong power hitters at Coors Field. He comes in with a 118 WRC plus. He's got a 233 ISO versus righties, 37% fly ball rate, which we love to see. He's going against Ryan Feltner. He's only going 0.96 home runs per nine, but he still has a 37% fly ball rate and 35% hard contact rate. So he's right on that line. He's also allowing a 438 slugging. So I think the numbers are a little bit better than they actually are under the hood. So I will take some regression there. And even if they bring in a lefty, he still has a 290 ISO versus lefties. Naylor, that is. I'll also be on Danny Jansen for the Blue Jays and Matt Olson for the Braves.
All right. Excellent stuff there. Let me ask you, by the way, we're going to get into this a little bit more later in the show, but the Ronald Acuna Jr. news and what you kind of make of where Atlanta sits right now, still, top 5 odds to win a World Series, but not in that same class as the Dodgers like they were preseason.
Right. Off the top of my head, I would put them at best third. Dodgers, Phillies, Braves is probably the way I would go as it now. The Phillies just look so good. Pitching, hitting, they have it all. Dodgers have to be number one. Braves, probably a wild card team actually this year. But as the season goes on, they might fall behind, especially in the pitching.
Yeah, I think Atlanta, and I don't want to overreact, but this is a team that's now lost arguably their 2 most valuable players, with Spencer Strider's injury happening in season as well. And again, I don't want to overreact. I'm not going to say they're bad, right? But they're not playing great baseball at the moment. And again, I can't say they're going to miss the playoffs or anything of the nature, but man, sometimes you see stuff like this, Tom, and say, hey, let's buy low. I feel like it makes me even more confident that Atlanta is not going to do anything. Their win total, I believe, still updated on FanDuel, 97.5. And I don't think that this team's going to still just churn out win after win after win.
It's probably the case where it's like both things can be true at the same time. It's like they're not as good as the Phillies or the Dodgers, but they're also not terrible. And it kind of leaves this murky middle ground. It's like you could probably fade them on a daily basis and be profitable, at least for the remaining portion of the season, just because, especially when they're at home. And if Max Fried is on the mound like tonight, like there's probably just going to be value on the other side just because that's where the lines are going to be.
Yeah, and look, this is a team that's 30-21 right now, which is, again, solid. Marcell Ozuna is having a MVP-esque year. But outside of that, this is a team that didn't have really anybody from the lineup playing as well as last year, right? Between Olsen and Riley and Acuna in his own right, you can take that one of two ways. If those guys bounce back, it can get better. But if this continues, again, I'm just very surprised that number is still 97.5, which I think is pretty interesting. Let's talk some hockey. I have a big picture question for you just because I can't help myself. But, man, and I don't know if this comparison lands. You'll actually know better than me. The Green Bay Packers, right, and the whole Favre to Rodgers thing.
Okay.
Hank was the guy in New York. Everybody loved him, and it was a little bit of a shame he couldn't get the thing done. And now in comes Igor. It feels like he's the best goalie in the league. He's certainly in that conversation at minimum. But how close is Igor to kind of jumping Hank all time? Maybe it doesn't matter, but it feels pretty remarkable that the Rangers are just right back to now having a team built around their goalie being amazing.
Right, and like they are probably, I would have to really dig into some stats to look at like the actual goals saved above expected to see where Igor sits alongside Hank. But like from a record standpoint, it would take Igor years to get there, just in terms of original 16 wins, fewest games to X amount of wins, postseason shutouts, like all those things. It is probably close in the long run once Igor gets his next contract extension. He's going to be there for however many more years. It is actually a decent comparison for the Green Bay Packers going from Favre to Rodgers and Hank to Igor. I'm on board with that.
All right, so a little love there. What do you like tonight in this game between the Rangers and the Panthers?
Going to Carter Verhaeghe for over 3.5 shots. Solid line there, sitting at, was it plus 126, plus 124, wherever it's sitting there. 7 shots on goal in the most recent game. He also had another 7 shot attempts that didn't hit the net, and then a few more that were blocked. So he had over 20 shot attempts in that game. And obviously, he's piling it up on the first forward line, first power play. We get that plus money from him. They have to turn up the offense, not in terms of shot pressure, because what they're doing. They just need to convert more of it at a more consistent basis, because they're getting all these shot attempts and just so few of them are going in. Obviously, Igor's been amazing. Their defense is solid. I would also go to Sasha Barkov on that first forward line alongside Carter Verhaeghe. It's only over 2.5. I'm sitting at minus 108. So we're getting 2 primary offensive players, and the Panthers are just going to continue to do their thing. They lead the shot attempt advantage 249 to 184 in this series. They're just constantly pouring it on, and that's what they have to do after 2 back-to-back losses in overtime.
Yeah, one bet that I made for Game 3 in this series was Igor for 20 or more saves in every game. It's a FanDuel series special. Now it was minus 215. It's now minus 290. To be honest with you, there is still value on the number. It really should be minus 500, quite frankly. See, I'll do this because I know you love this stuff, Tom. In the regular season, 85.5% of his games, he had 20 or more saves, which is an implied probability of minus 590. Then you factor in he's had at least 20 saves in every single playoff game. The only time a starting goalie didn't have 20 saves was Swayman with 19 because he got benched against the Panthers. And Igor's had 25-plus saves in every single game against Florida. I see, you're probably the perfect person to ask. Would you still lay minus 290 then based on what you just heard?
Not 290. If it was around 200, I would take it.
Okay. Yeah, 290 I think sometimes is just too tough for people, which is understandable. And
I would
probably
go
myself.
200.
Yeah, I played the minus 215. Here's the thing. I know this is like, it's going to win. Like, it is. And that's kind of the name of the game. NBA, anything you like with Minnesota and Dallas?
Yeah, let's just go to Rudy Gobert under 11.5 points. He's only averaging 12.2 in the playoffs overall, and this is a must-win game for Minnesota. And when we're thinking about this, like, what is the Minnesota game plan? They're not sitting here going, okay, in order to win this game, we need to get Rudy Gobert, 15 field goal attempts. Like, that's not the game plan. It's them winning. We know he's very efficient. Like, there are games, he goes 8 of 10 just because that's what he does. And he can rack up a ton of easy points. I understand that. But him having the ball on a consistent basis in his hands when they're on offense is not the path to Minnesota winning, right? I assume we would agree on that point. Like, they need more play from Karl-Anthony Towns. Anthony Edwards has been, yes, underperforming, but it's, I don't want to say not necessarily his fault. He's been fine in the grand scheme of things. They need more from Karl-Anthony Towns. Getting the ball to Gobert is not their path to succeeding tonight.
Yeah, it's never it's never plan A. I just wonder. I'm going to be really interested to see if we get a big Minnesota win, Tom. Do we then go, oh, wow, Lively was that important? They're in trouble if he's not back by Game 5. It's on the board.
I think if we get a big Minnesota win tonight, the next play would be Anthony Edwards unders in the following game, especially if that line jumps up where he's just not going to be as efficient that he could be potentially tonight. We're going to see more of what we saw in the first few games of the series.
All right, all stuff we're going to be keeping our eye on. Great stuff as always from Tom. Josh Naylor for Dinger Tuesday. Tom, appreciate it as always.
Thanks for having me.
All right, great stuff there from Tom. And as I mentioned, we'll get into this a little bit more, but I am on Juan Soto, Corey Seager for some dingers tonight. Up next, Coach James Young. We'll talk about it all. Minnesota and Dallas, Boston, Indiana. And if you're lucky, we'll bring up Bronny James. That's next. Using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live on SportsGrid, game time decisions. Let's talk some NBA. Coach James Young is in the fold. JY, great to have you here for a little bit on this Tuesday. It is a huge Game 4 between Minnesota and Dallas, because if Dallas wins, we're losing the NBA for like a week, and that's not what anybody asked for. Not what I signed up for, not what you signed up for. Look, tell me, are you seeing any optimism for Minnesota heading into Game 4?
Kevin, I am going to be the eternal optimist as a coach.
Okay.
I think we can make an argument that Minnesota could be up 2 games to 1 in this series. As bad as they've played, particularly Cat shooting 3 of 22 from 3 the last 3 games. Anthony Edwards, who has not really been good since game 4 of the Western Conference semis. And the fact that I could say, if you count 10 possessions, and we don't have to go through 10 possessions, this could be 2-1 the other way. So while it is a 3-0 hole, it's kind of like the Indiana-Boston series where you're like, well, if this play goes this way instead of that way, it could be closer. It could be a 2-1. It could be 2-1, Dallas. It could be 2-1 Minnesota. So to me, I think there's a play here that I could see Minnesota winning this game tonight. And then obviously as a coach, you don't say, you can't win 4 until you win 1. So you got to win 1 and then try to get it back home and hope that you get game 5, so on and so forth. But you can't get the game 5, K-Dub, unless you win game 4 first.
Well, the big question is the Derek Lively absence, right? And I think everybody, but I know certainly you and I are aware how important this is, because not only has Lively been awesome, but it has allowed Dallas at all times to have one of either Lively or Gafford on the court. They had to turn to Dwight Powell last game. Maxi Kleber could see action potentially here in game 4. What do you think the Lively absence could mean, and is it factoring into any of the bets you're going to be making in tonight's game?
Yeah, it does, because I think Derek Lively has been lively. I would say to use those words, particularly on the offensive board as a lob threat. He's been really good, Kevin, and the trade for Daniel Gafford has helped this kid relax and come off the bench. Now Gafford's got to play more minutes. Like Daniel Gafford, who can get himself up into foul trouble. And now you're looking at, whether it's Dwight Powell or Maxi Kleber, you're not dealing with, let's be honest, any kind of rim protection. So if you're a team like Minnesota, now maybe this lane opens up a little bit more, right? Now on the Luka drives, maybe the lob. I think if I saw somebody, I think this kid's got more lob dunks than like most teams do in the NBA playoffs. Like I think I saw something wild like that. So now you take away the lob threat. Now you don't have to worry about defending the rim. Losing Derek Lively is going to hurt Dallas more than people think, especially at home where you feed off of his energy. The crowd does, especially if he gets those lob dunks.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how long Gafford can stay out on the court. Played 29 minutes last game, which was a series high. JY, any other picks for this game tonight that you're involved with?
Well, if you think about this, right? Simply put, no Lively, right? And I think Minnesota's going to try and play with pace. I like the over 211.5, Kevin. I think I could see a path where they got to get this game up and down. They talked about it in game 1. They still haven't done it. They got to get the ball up the floor and get the ball in space on the wing where he can't get loaded up on. So I like over 211.5 in the game. And then, Kevin, you're in Jersey. I'm in Jersey. Jersey in the building. Kyrie Irving, over 23.5 points. Why, you ask? Go look at what Kyrie's done to close out games. Just go look. I know he got 22 last time out versus OKC. But you saw what he did in the second half. You saw what he did in the close of the game against the Clippers. Kevin knows this as being a LeBron backer. Look at some of the games he had in close out games as a member of the Cavs. This guy steps up in big spots. I like Kyrie to go over his points prop. And to go with the fact that I think it's going to be points, Kevin, I like Naz Reid over 12.5 points over the last 3 games. And this is a guy where if you're Chris Finch, Kevin, you got to find Naz minutes. Whether it's for Gobert, which then hurts your defense, or for Cat, who is 3 for 22 from the series from 3, Nas is going to get his. Kevin, there have been times when Nas has been, ready for this, folks, better than Ant offensively for this team. And I still think 12.5 is too low. I think he gets 15 plus. Give me Nas Reed over 12.5 points tonight.
Coach, before I get you out of here, the Indiana Pacers, I haven't talked about them really tonight. I wanted to hit on Boston off the top. What did you make of this Pacers season, and any major takeaway from them being still swept ultimately in the conference finals?
They're young. But the biggest problem that I have is you go into this series, you think Rick Carlisle is out-coaching Joe Mazzulla. Let's just call it what it is. And when you're that close, Kevin, your coach has got to get you over the hump. Remember what I've always said, folks? Players win them, coaches lose them. He lost them game one by not advancing the ball. He lost them game one by not making sure they fouled Jaylen Brown in the corner up 3. They lost game 3 with the fact that he did not let Pascal Siakam touch the ball the last 2 possessions, and he had Nembhard being guarded by the best defender in the world, the Drew Holiday, and it was Cookie Monster time. And then game number 4 being up by 8 points in the fourth quarter. 3 times, 90% win chance Indiana had, and lost it. They will mature. But damn it, Rick Carlisle, Lloyd Pierce, Jim Boylan, the rest of that staff, they got to be better, K-Dub. They blew it. We should be playing tomorrow night in Boston.
I think it's hard to argue. Great stuff as always from Coach James Young. We'll be right back here talking more NBA next.
Using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're back with you right here on Game Time Decisions. And there was some big NBA draft news today. There's a lot of NBA draft stuff that's been coming out about teams that are looking to make some moves. I know there's been some Stephon Castle stuff recently, Rasheer, Klingon, plenty of interesting stuff. But the name that people are continuously drawn to is Bronny James. And that is evident by the market. If you look across your top sports books, they'll give you the first pick. They'll give you where is Bronny going. There is also an over-under draft position out there for Bronny James. at 39.5. And I think today's news around Bronny, reported by Shams Charania, is really fascinating and could be really important. Bronny had 10 workouts potentially scheduled with different teams around the league, and he is only going to be working out now with the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers. Before this report had come out, we had heard that Phoenix was interested in Bronny. They have the 22nd overall draft pick, and that is the only pick that the Phoenix Suns have. There have been some additional reports and ideas that Phoenix believes bringing in Bronny could lead to them bringing in LeBron James. The idea of Bronny and LeBron being a package deal, I feel, has been discussed less. Perhaps that ramps up as we get closer. It was certainly going to be one of the most fascinating aspects of this draft if you could essentially draft LeBron in it, while the oldest player now in the league, still one of the obvious 10 best in the sport, who I believe will be playing 2 more seasons. So if you can bring in LeBron for 2 years, depending on your timeline, situation, and surroundings, would LeBron be worth your first-round draft choice, much less a potential player you could develop in Bronny James? I would say the answer is yes for a lot. But now we have, it appears, 2 teams zeroing in on Bronny. Why this is incredibly fascinating, though, is when we pair this report with what Bronny has said, it feels as if Bronny has been given a promise. The idea of LeBron plus Bronny is something LeBron introduced and Bronny has somewhat pushed back on. His main goal, is not to play with his father, but to play in the NBA. The more teams you work out with, the more teams you impress, the likelier that chance is. If you go out there and have a workout with Utah, then perhaps you come off of the board, not realistically at 10, but at 29 or 32. That's certainly in play. If you have a workout with the New York Knicks, who have picks 24 and 25, then all of a sudden, that could be in play. Yet Bronny declining those, limiting his options. Wouldn't that suggest he's been given a guarantee by Phoenix? You won't fall past 22? There are LeBron ties to Phoenix through James Jones, who runs that organization. And if James Jones has a sense that drafting Bronny can get him LeBron, and if at minimum the clutch camp is comfortable with the Phoenix Suns drafting Bronny, then why bother with the outside noise? It's Lakers or Phoenix, and we're happy with the result. The Suns only have 1 pick. And the Bronny James camp just made a decision that suggests they know where they're going, which then suggests betting the Suns to be the team to select Bronny at 10-1, alongside the Lakers to be the team to select Bronny at plus 180, would be a good piece of business. And more importantly, taking Bronny under 39.5 draft position feels can't miss. We're a month out. Perhaps there is some misdirection here. But it now feels likelier that Bronny is selected inside the top 25 than outside of the top 40. Time will tell, rumors will swirl, but I'm already on this under 39.5, and I'm thinking about jumping in again. We'll talk baseball next. using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in. Game time decisions. Kevin Walsh with you here on a Tuesday night. Dave Sharapan coming up in a half hour. But we're going to go through the baseball board. I want to make sure you're in the mix with me, though, here. WNBA style. The Connecticut Sun and the Phoenix Mercury are going to be playing at 7, but we also have a Sparks team total over 79.5 as they go to Indiana to play Caitlin Clark and the Fever. So we're involved WNBA style, but we're involved big time Major League Baseball style. Dinger Tuesday, it was actually something I started earlier at Citi Field with Mets-Dodgers. And I was left with 2 home runs, which is fine, but I'm a little more annoyed because I played Ohtani in Game 1 and Game 2, and Ohtani is not supposed to play in the second game. He actually went 0 for 5. Ohtani here against the Mets today, one of his worst days, probably the worst of the season. No runs scored, no RBI. While that is frustrating, what's more frustrating is Ohtani not playing in Game 2. The thought process for me simple. If I get 8 to 10 ABs for Ohtani today, I'll take a chance he hits a home run in one of those games. I'm now not going to get an Ohtani at bat in Game 2, and honestly, I don't really even know what happens. If he pinch hits, I'm guessing the bet counts, and unless he hits the home run, I lose. I don't know if I get any of the bonus bets back from FD, so that's an unfortunate one there. But hopefully the next 2 guys will step up. Pair of lefties here. Seager, Soto, 3-1 Corey Seager, plus 225 on Juan Soto. Seager tonight going against Brandon Pfaadt. Career home run against him, familiar against him, and Pfaadt has struggled against lefties. So if we're going to look for a lefty in this Texas lineup, why would we look any further than Corey Seager, who is red hot right now, hitting home runs? And I know at times, at least for me, I worry how many times can a guy go back-to-back with home runs. Well, here's what we've seen from Corey Seager over his last 6 baseball games. Home run, home run, home run, home run, no home runs, and then he hit 2 on Sunday. I don't want to overcomplicate this. At plus 300, I think Seager could send it out. Now, I'm also on the money line on this game for the Texas Rangers at minus 130. One of the reasons I was happy to use this as a Dinger Tuesday game, while I'm on the Rangers, because Eovaldi Font, in perfect conditions in Texas, I think should be probably closer to minus 155, minus 160. But Eovaldi is pitching for the first time in 3 to 4 weeks. May 2nd, I believe, the last time we saw Eovaldi on the mound. Now, if he has his good stuff, we're going to win our money line bet. If he doesn't, we can get some bonus stingers here from the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is why I like this game quite a bit. My other Dinger Tuesday game is Yankees-Angels, and I'm looking for Juan Soto, who I did look for last week, and unsurprisingly homered the next day. But if you're going against Griffin Canning, which is certainly a home run spot, you want to look for a lefty, and I'm looking for Juan Soto to go deep in this game at plus 255. Judgy's sitting at plus 210 on that number. And this is another game where I'm also playing the money line, and I'm playing it at minus 185. Now, I will say this, and if you'll notice, I've been a little bit more willing to lay some bigger juice probably over the last 2 to 3 weeks or so. And if I think the Yankees are going to win this game, then what's the crime in laying minus 185, right? This is also because for, I would say, most of my bets now, not all, but almost all of my bets, let's just be $100 better for a moment here. Instead of laying 185 to win 100, I'm just laying 100. And I'm going to get back what I get back, right? So it kind of eliminates the, oh my goodness, this better hit, or it's a huge loss, right? And it's a straight wager, and if I win, I'm going to get back my dollars, and I'm expecting a Yankee win here off of a loss against the San Diego Padres. Good matchup, bad team. Nestor Cortez going, though, and he has been vulnerable on the road, which, again, is important because we would love the other side to give us 2 home runs if we need them for Dinger Tuesday. But I'm also on a DK boost. I'm hitting this game across the board here, up 2. I mean, Volpe home run followed by a Soto home run, and then let's go home. Let's go home. Let's get the money right here. You love getting a road team if you can with a little up 2 special, and that's what I have here with the New York Yankees at minus 185. What else do I have on your baseball board today? I have an over in Braves-Nats, 8.5. Wish it was 8, but at minus 102 juice, I was all right to play it. Now, Max Fried was brilliant in his last outing, and he's actually been really great for a little bit now. He had a complete game, 3-hit performance, gave up just 1 earned against the Cubs. And if you look, there's a guy who had an 8.74 ERA at one point. I mean, he's trickled this thing down to a 3.38. But coming off of a complete game, maybe we see him leak a little bit of oil. He's been worse this year in Atlanta. I know the last time he had a complete game, it was followed by another 6 innings of shutout baseball. But again, he has been worse in Atlanta, so I'll take that. And also, this is a Braves lineup, little inspired maybe by the Acuna absence. Let's step up here, right? Against a guy in Jake Irving that it feels like the entire lineup has good hitter-pitcher history against. I'm going to take my chances here on over 8.5. And then we've got Louis Arise as my MLB play of the day. That's over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs at minus 120. Look, minus 120 on a leadoff hitter is always going to catch my attention, right? I mean, you're talking 5 ABs. Almost assuredly it'll feel now for Louis Arise. But he goes up against Jesus Luzardo, who struggled this season against lefties. So I've got an appropriate matchup in that regard. I know this year Arise has been much better against right-handed pitching, but he's still batting .286. Of course he is, against lefties, because this is one of the best contact hitters in the sport. Leadoff single, Tatis take him deep, and let's see tomorrow here. I was interested in the Padres' money line, but that Arise number really caught my attention here, and I'm going to play it at minus 120. The other money lines that I'm on, just 2, that's going to be the Twins at plus 114. Cole Reagans, I do feel that I struggle a little bit to get Cole Reagans correct, okay, which can be a little annoying. But he was a home dog against Tariq Skubal. Now, you might say, please don't compare Woods, Richardson, and Skubal. Fair. Woods Richardson's having a really nice year, and we're flipping this from home to road. Maybe I'm valuing home field too much. But the Royals are a 500 ball club this season on the road. This team's been close to impossible to beat in Kansas City this year. Minnesota is a team that had the incredible run. I think they lost then 6 or 7 straight, and now they're back to playing really strong baseball, winning 5 out of the last 6. including these home games stepping up, and they're above a 500 team at home. So I'll take a plus price here on the Twins at plus 114. And I'm going to take the Mariners tonight at minus 125. Not sure if I'm walking straight down into a trap here, but this is an Astros team that I feel the books are kind of up and down on. I know there's some spots where you look at it and you go, ooh, they're booking Houston like a team that's not all that good. They're booking them like a 24-30 baseball team. And then you see a number like tonight where you go, oh, they fully believe Hunter Brown's back. And I don't fully believe Hunter Brown is back. He's been much better, but he's not as good as Luis Castillo. And I know Castillo has not had a dominant stretch of run here, but he is still a guy that you can't light him up, right? People got to him early season, 4 straight starts of the year. 3 straight of 4+ earned runs. He hasn't given up more than 2 earned since those 3 starts. At minus 125 for a home ball game in Seattle, a 16-10 home team against a 10-15 road team, I really like the Mariners here. I really do. At minus 125, we're in the mix. Live baseball right now, 3s up here in Baltimore and Boston. Any home runs there? Abreu had one in that first inning there. Devers got it in, so you're up 2 betters for Boston are good. And then we're scoreless right now in Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Tampa Bay and Oakland. When we come back, what do we do with the Atlanta Braves? What do we do with this team that's now lost Ronald Acuna Jr. and had already lost Spencer Strider? Is there value on Atlanta? Do we buy low? We'll try to answer that question next right here on Game Time Decisions. Using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live here with you on Game Time Decisions, and over the weekend, the Atlanta Braves received some crushing news. Last year's NL MVP, Ronald Acuna Jr., is out for the year with a torn ACL. And while Acuna Jr. was not having anywhere near the caliber of season of last, 250 batting average, he was closer to 350 last year. 16 swipes, still good, not great. right, compared to Ellie De La Cruz and his, double the amount of steals, 4 home runs. I mean, it was a lackluster year for Acuna Jr. However, you'd rather have him than not. And I think the thing for the Braves, when you look at that lineup, you look at where they sit, 30-21 at the moment, there had to be some thought of, man, we're really good, and our guys aren't playing great. If you think about this lineup, and we talked about this a little earlier on in the show with Tom Vecchio, Austin Riley, relative to last year, down. Matt Olson, relative to last year, down. And Acuna Jr., nowhere close. And yet this team with the clear-cut third-best record in the National League, yet the Philadelphia Phillies putting this team in a weird position. So we take a look at their updated odds, because there's been movement since the Acuna Jr. injury. And at least plus 165. The pennant is 4-1. The World Series is 8-1. That win total 97.5. They have 111 games left. They'd need to win 68 of those baseball games in order to get through that number. But that NL East price is not just an Acuna Jr. injury. It's not just the Spencer Strider injury. It's the Philadelphia Phillies having an awesome start to the year, as good as any, if not better than everybody else. And yet it's just plus 165. It was taking the books a while to come around to Philadelphia, not because they didn't believe in that roster, because they didn't want to go against this Braves team. I think realistically, we talk about this, and we'll talk about this with Consigan a little bit. When they post odds, remember, it's not just what they believe, but it's where the action's coming in. I think if sports books were posting World Series odds on what they believe, Atlanta might have still sat in front of the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers had but no choice to become World Series favorites with the offseason they had, Ohtani, Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow. But Atlanta never fell all that far behind. And here we are now. The Atlanta Braves are clearly second place in their division, losing Ronald Acuna Jr., preseason NL MVP favorite, and preseason NL Cy Young favorite Spencer Strider. They're still 8-1 to win a World Series. This is an Atlanta team. I know they have won a World Series. I'm not saying they have proven that they can't cross that finish line. That is a team, though, who at the time had a lot of key guys that aren't in the mix anymore. Freddie Freeman, ring a bell? Oddly enough, Ronald Acuna Jr. was actually injured that season as well. That's neither here nor there. But for Atlanta, to now be down your 2 most valuable players, getting passed by Philly, and we know what the Dodgers have in their back pocket, why is this team still 8-1 to win a World Series? Who here is sitting and arguing that Atlanta's the play? Atlanta last year was the best team in the sport, clearly, very clearly, and again fell short against the Phils. I'm someone who feels like the buy is damaging because it's what all of the evidence suggests. All of it suggests. But part of it could also be the Philadelphia Phillies, each time they would step onto the field against the Braves, all of a sudden you go, wait a minute. The pitching edge belongs to Philly. This is a team that lost Strider. Thank goodness Chris Sale is hit. But what the Braves were relying on last year was the best lineup in the sport. Well, now that lineup is missing their best guy in Ronald Acuna Jr. So when we're looking for value on Atlanta, somehow it's actually, in my eyes, usually after an injury, if you want value, you buy low. Market overcorrects. This market is not overcorrecting. This market is still saying this is the Atlanta Braves. If you made me put a ticket in on a Braves future, I'd probably look to the under win total, but I'm already on it preseason. The Braves are minus 7,000 on one book to make the playoffs. Stop it. Ridiculous. In what world? They are now projected to be a wild card, so that's the race. And when you end up in a wild card race, While they are 4 up right now on the next closest team, you're competing against 4, 5, 6 teams all of a sudden. You're supposed to be a division leader like Atlanta. There's really only one other team that can catch you. This is a wild card Braves team, which brings in a lot of other questions and teams that can get in the mix. I found a 15-1 on Atlanta to miss the playoffs. Now, ultimately, that's nonsense and very annoying because the yes is minus 5,000 at this book and the no is plus 1,500. That's just ridiculous. Okay, we're getting screwed on juice there. We are. But if you give me the 25-1, 30-1 that I probably should be getting based on their numbers, well then I'll take a chance. And the Atlanta Braves missed the playoffs. What is there to be high on? Michael Harris Jr., Matt Olson, Austin Riley. You want to buy low on these guys? Where? The MVP market? Marcell Ozuna's off to a great start. You got him win an MVP now? What if he takes a step back? Or is he just going to win a Triple Crown? Is Chris Sale going to be able to keep this going? I mean, this team's one injury away from being in a nightmare spot. So again, usually we have these conversations, we look to buy low. The book said, they're still the third best team in the National League with a ton of distance, closer to Philly and the Dodgers than whomever else you could present to the table. I disagree. I'm out on this Atlanta team, and I think they're in a very bad spot. They are, though, playing a game today against the Nationals where I'm looking for juice, and we're going over the 8.5 runs. Max Fried, Jake Irvin. Let's put some runs on the board in that game. We'll be right back. Resetting the NBA card next. Using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, we're back with you right here. It's game time decisions, and we're getting set for a full card. Davis Maddock is going to look to help us out, same game parlay style. Let's see what he has tonight.
All right, we are back with another same game parlay. Over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, we are going to turn our attention to Game 4 of Wolves Mavericks. Not going to take an opinion on the side or the total. Kind of just too hard to do that with that series pretty much decided. We are going to take the under for Karl Anthony Towns on 19.5 points to begin our same game parlay. Minutes are down, scoring are down for Karl Anthony Towns for a pretty clear reason. Naz Reid has been better than him. I anticipate we see 28 minutes maybe of Naz Reid tonight. I think we see quite a bit of him in this game. We are also going to take the aforementioned Reid to score over 12.5 points. I think you can boost this one up to 14.5 or 15.5 inside of a same game parlay if you want to embrace that risk a little bit. And then the third leg is going to be Kyrie Irving over 24.5 points for the Mavericks. He just has been so good, so shifty for the Mavericks in the lane. It's been impossible for the Timberwolves to do anything with Kyrie Irving. This three-leg same-game parlay gives us plus 489 odds. Karl Anthony Towns under 19.5. Naz Reid over 12.5 points. Kyrie Irving over 24.5 points. Good luck tonight, everybody.
All right, appreciate that breakdown there from Davis Maddock, helping us get set for the NBA. And while I appreciate the breakdown, my next bet will certainly be against the Kyrie Irving and Karl Anthony Towns legs. I mentioned wanting to get Karl plus 4.5, and I have been able to do that now. Points against Kyrie Irving. So, look, Cat's been awful. There's no other way to sugarcoat it, right? He has been so bad, it is very real that tonight could be his last in a Minnesota Timberwolf uniform. I mean, it's very possible. 28% from the field, 13.6% from three. It's been really bad for Cat. I'm very curious to see if because he found some success driving to the 10, does that more or tells himself, I am going to snap out of this shooting stretch here. This is someone that was shooting well above 40% from three before this Dallas series began in the postseason. You know, Cat labeling himself the best big man shooter of all time, I know has always been something that's annoyed people, but he is statistically certainly within reach of the claim, standing 7 foot tall and being a 40% three-point shooter. Considering I think Cat could be in line for a bounce back, and Kyrie should be in line for a down tick, getting 4.5 is absolutely worth a look here. Kyrie coming off of a 30-point performance. We look at what that's looked like so far this postseason. 31 against the Clippers, next game 23. 40 against the Clippers, next game 14. He didn't have any 30-point performances against Oklahoma City. A 30-ball against the Timberwolves in game 1, next game 20. So if you look at the ranges there, the high mark was 23, the low mark was 14. I think Cat can be in range of any of that. And if we happen to get a down Kyrie night, and while it's a closeout game and it's not one that he's going to no-show, but if we get a down Kyrie night, 17, 18 points, you know, if you look at Cat in this series, 16, 15, 14. And that's with atrocious shooting. He's shooting 18 field goal attempts a night. In the first two series, it was 12.3 and 13.7. There's volume here for Karl. There's usage here for Karl. He could score 25, and at that point, Kai would need another 30-point performance, and I don't think he's getting there. So I'm happy to put these two guys against one another. That is a head-to-head special on FanDuel. In the head-to-head market over on DraftKings, it also comes with combinations, and that's what I'm playing tonight for Rudy Gobert and Daniel Gafford over 18.5 rebounds. It's my best bet in this game. It is the bet for me to play with Derek Lively's absence because also you've got full buy low. 6 boards last time out for Rudy, 3 boards for Daniel Gafford. Gafford could flirt with a playoff high in minutes. He's not cracked 30 yet. I think that's on the board. And if Gobert, who's had an easier time with Gafford, gets him into foul trouble, I mean, there's just not going to be an answer for Rudy on the glass. They throw Cleva out there. They try and play 5 out okay. But again, Rudy should be able to punish on the other side. Over 18.5 rebounds is what we look for here between Rudy Gobert and Daniel Gafford. Update, by the way, 24-15 Sparks after 1 against the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark and the crew with a lot of work here if they want to make it up. We'll keep eyes on the W board, the baseball board, and a lot more next.
using the parlays against one another, right? And being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back at the right here, it's Game Time Decisions live on this Tuesday night. Live updates for you. 3-0 St. Louis as they've now jumped out on the Reds there. Win with a double, 2-run shot, Nolan Arenado. Boston grabbed the lead off of the Orioles there with another Devers RBI. So that's a little 2 RBI night there for Rafi Devers. Still scoreless in Oakland, Tampa. And then the Nerfy is flirting with success here, 1 out away in Atlanta and Washington for anybody that bet that. Weather right now is delaying the White Sox game against Toronto. 7:40 starts on the baseball board. Mets-Dodgers game 2, as well as Brewers-Cubs, and then Minnesota and Kansas City, where I'm on that Twins money line. Milwaukee-Chicago is not something I want to talk about. Shout out the 3-0 Willie Adames swing yesterday. Let me take this time here as we're going to wait. Dave Sharpan will join us in a little bit. Talk some Indiana Pacers and ultimately what was a sweep at the hands of the Boston Celtics. As tempted as I am to just go on a Laker rant, because all of a sudden now people apparently can understand that you can be competitive and get swept, that's not what anybody needs to hear. For the Pacers, this is frustrating. This is incredibly frustrating. Yes, you can step back 1,000 feet and say, man, we made the conference finals, and we were in every single game with a team that is supposed to cut down the nets. We won an in-season tournament final. Tyrese Halliburton hit a level. This is a successful year. But how, as an Indiana Pacer fan, or backer of any kind, because if you placed any Pacers series-long bets, they lost, right? Plus any amount of games, they lost. How are you not unbelievably frustrated? Game 1 should have been a win. I mean, it was ridiculous. Inbound the basketball. Don't give up the 3. I'm not saying Pascal should have fouled. It was a weird spot, but still, my goodness. Don't lose that game. They did. Then to blow an 18-point lead in Game 2 at home, nightmare. Near double-digit lead in Game 4 at home, nightmare. The Pacers being up 3-1 is a stretch. This being level is not. And certainly having a game tomorrow isn't. And this all happened while you didn't have your best player. Yet feels like the Pacers will be fine. It's hard not to think that the Pacers will be fine. Tyrese is young. Nembhard is young. Miles Turner is young. Heck, Pascal Siakam is not old. He's 30. He's young, right? The team has time. But you had an opportunity to do so much more in this series, and you couldn't. So it's incredibly frustrating. You head into this offseason now, and you have to bring Pascal back. I think they will be successful in that, largely because Pascal really didn't seem like he ever wanted to be traded out of Toronto. One of those guys you kind of believe the loyalty in. And as long as the Pacers pony up, which I think they will, it's hard to imagine he's not a Pacer. So the big question then for Indiana to me is actually on Halliburton. And there's two questions. The first one is there an injury problem here? Last year, they only played 56 games. The Pacers missed the playoffs last year because Tyrese Halliburton went through injuries. They probably could have been a playoff team had Hallie stayed healthy. He didn't. Okay, it happens. This year, he played 69 total games. The injuries that stopped his regular season process ended up rearing their head in the postseason, and there was a separate injury altogether he was dealing with in the postseason. That's frustrating. It's not it happens, right? But if a guy like Halliburton is going to consistently be injured, that would be very damaging. It would be. So it's just one of those things you keep in the back of your mind. There are certain guys, health-wise, it becomes difficult to trust. Everybody knows that with Embiid. Nobody seems to be aware of it around Giannis. That's whatever. But so we wonder that with Halliburton. The other thing to wonder is what type of scoring leap can we see from Tyrese? 20 a night this year with 10.9 assists. He is an offensive engine. But the Halliburton scoring stuff was at its best as far as what are we going to get in the series against the Knicks. You just read through the game log. 6, 34, 35, 20, 13, 15, 26. What is that? That's not a superstar, right? That's a up and down number 2. Halliburton is the guy on this team. He is. And the fact that this team, by the way, were able to win that series while not only Halliburton was having up and down scoring games, but never broke through for double-digit dimes, it was impressive. But next year, could we see Tyrese Halliburton go to 25 a night? The efficiency suggests he can get there. Now, 25 and 11 is crazy, but again, that's MVP stuff. It's MVP stuff. And here's the deal. Tyrese Halliburton, in November, gave this team in 13 games, I know it's 13 games, 28.6 points and 11.7 assists. Tyrese Halliburton, in the next month, was averaging only 21.4, but guess what? In 12 games in December, it was 14 assists per game. Tyrese Halliburton had a stretch in the beginning of the year. People largely tie it to the injury, where he was playing at a near MVP level. I mean, we're talking 12 assists per game through the first near 30 games of the season. How much of a leap can we get from Tyrese over a full season? Because if Tyrese Halliburton can take a leap and play a full season, this is a 55-win team. With Pascal for a full year next to him, it's a 55-win team. You know, there is, I know at least one book out there, I believe, that has 2025 NBA title odds. Yeah, here they are. The Pacers are currently 40-1. Same price as Cleveland, behind Miami, Memphis, Phoenix, and the Lakers. I don't want to call those disrespectful numbers. But as far as the Eastern Conference teams in front of them, it's Boston, it's Milwaukee, it's Philly, it's the Knicks, it's Miami, and then again Cleveland right on par. from at least the regular season angle of it all, the Pacers can jump in front of all those teams, minus Boston? Well, that gets very interesting then. It really does. And again, this is a team that was just in the conference finals against the team favored to win the title, covering 3 out of the 4 games, feeling like they should have won 3 out of the 4 games. If we get a leap from the Pacers, when we start doing the value thing, this team could very well come front of mind. We'll see what their offseason is. They have to be able to retain Pascal. And again, I think they will. Can they make more moves? Who's available? Should they make more moves? What is the asking price? If they reunite with Paul George, well, all of a sudden now this gets interesting. If Andrew Nembhard is replaced by PG, and now you have Nembhard and Benny Math off the bench, whoa, we have something here. Because this is still a team that's going to have to improve the defense. We know that. We do. So we'll see what we get out of Indiana this offseason. It is a successful year. It is a frustrating close. And it does bring some questions around Carlisle. It certainly does. But not enough questions that the answer is he's gone. But questions, certainly. We'll be right back. We're live here on a Tuesday night on SportsGrid. Using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back right here, game time decisions on a Tuesday night. See if there's anything major happening live. Slow offensive start here in the second half for the Sparks, which is a shame. Hopefully we've built up enough of an early lead that will not be too damaging. No score. Dodge. Oh, my gosh. Will Smith goes deep, and the 2-hole where Ohtani was supposed to be in the second game. It is what it is. It is what it is. Who cares? I don't know if I get any dingers. I have no idea. I have no idea. Other than that, no score updates right now from the baseball board. The other WNBA game right now had the Connecticut Sun up 9 on the Mercury. The one thing I actually haven't been able to talk in depth about tonight was the Eastern Conference Finals MVP vote. So, man, it was really interesting. Pre-series, right up there, at our big board, and we looked at a lot of the series leaders, and man, it was Tatum. And here's the thing, Tatum cashed. Led the series in points, led the series in rebounds. He actually missed out on leading the series in assists by 1 to Derek White. Led the series in steals, he was great. Jason Tatum. Or he didn't lead the series in steals, excuse me, but he was great across the board. The thought was this is a Tatum series. The Pacers can't guard him. They can't guard anybody. So if we could get a great JB game 1 or Pacers steal game 1, buy low, buy low, buy low. And after the second game, Jaylen Brown became the favorite. So the buy low was there. I couldn't do it. I didn't feel that despite that opportunity presenting itself, it didn't happen in a way where I felt confidence that Tatum was going to be voted Conference Finals MVP. And Tatum jumped right back to the favorite after the third game because he had 36, 10, and 8. And then as the game was going on in game number 4, Tatum was continually becoming a stronger favorite. I know one person out there, I apologize, I don't remember the account, but had tweeted as they bet Tatum to win Conference Finals MVP, he was at minus 800 heading into that fourth quarter. Honestly, hand up, horrific job at me not looking at that market in game because I would have looked for Jaylen Brown, especially with a really good fourth quarter. And I think my theory came through, which is this league was ready to vote against Tatum. Not massively. It was a 5-4 vote. But when you look at the Boston Celtics, when you describe this team, when you describe the Nuggets, it's about Jokic. When you describe the Mavericks, it's about Luka. When you describe the Lakers, it's about LeBron. Heck, when you describe the Heat, sometimes it's about Jimmy. Maybe it's about Spo. But Boston this year is kind of about everyone. Tatum is the best player. He's their most valuable player. Let's make no mistake around that. But it felt like they wanted to give someone else some credit for how good the team is. And ultimately, the raw numbers here. Tatum averaged 30.3 points to Jaylen Brown's 29.8. Tatum averaged 10.3 rebounds to Jaylen Brown's 5. Tatum averaged 6.3 assists to Jaylen Brown's 3. And yet, ultimately, it went to Jaylen Brown. Now, the efficiency wasn't close. JT was not good enough efficiency-wise in this series. 46% from the field, 30% from 3, 79% from the line. He was down in all 3 categories. Is that really what they decided on? Were they using stocks, steals plus blocks, as the determining factor in this market? I don't really think so. I think they were wanting to give someone else some credit. But that now means, with the NBA Finals and a minus 230 Boston number, if that bet is cashed, I strongly believe you will also be cashing minus 105, looks to be the best number right now. Tatum Finals MVP. Carbon copy the series. In the finals, Tatum wins it. Tatum wins it. They've given Jaylen Brown his due. Jaylen Brown didn't expect to win that award. They've given JB his due. And to some degree, good, right? It's their second Eastern Conference Finals win, and the first one, Tatum won, and now this one, Jaylen Brown wins. Okay, good. But Jaylen Brown's not beating out Tatum again, if it's even close. That's kind of the thing for Tatum. For it to be close against Brown was an indictment to the voters. Now if it's close, but Tatum edges him, it's an accomplishment. He was their best player. You're not going to get the hot takes that, Jaylen Brown's better than Jason Tatum in the finals. You're not going to get those. Because Tatum now will be given more credit for even slightly outplaying Jaylen Brown. The award's not going to Drew Holiday. It's not going to Kristaps Porzingis. Because if it does, they're not winning the series. They're not. I can't get there. That Jason Tatum, let's go back to the series against Miami, gives you 22, 10, and 5 on 41-29 shooting, and it's Celtics in 6. I can't get there. He has to be 27, 10, and 6. By the way, he also has to probably be the one guarding Luka if it is Dallas as it should be. So I don't know if I will end up on Boston in the finals. We have clearly a lot of time to decide. But I won't lay minus 230 money line. I won't lay a game and a half or 2.5. No. If I'm betting Boston, it's because I'm betting Tatum. Because Boston is not winning this series. And then they hand that trophy to anybody other than Jason Tatum. It's just not happening. Before we close things out here, let's run through the card one last time. It's a quick break. It's Game Time Decisions. Using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live to right here at SportsGrid. It's Game Time Decisions. I'm looking to make 1 or 2 maybe in this game between the Panthers and the Rangers. I wanted to find this team total for the Rangers right now, which is listed at 2.5. The under is minus 145. Now, I don't mind at times letting people know that I have some questions and confusion. What do I mean by that? So there is a goals allowed market, which has under 2.5 for Bobrovsky at minus 230, and the team total is 2.5 under minus 145. If you are watching this, and this is a dumb question, just enjoy the laugh and leave me alone. But does that mean that if it's an empty netter, Bobrovsky would not be charged with the goal? Because then that would be worth it. If that is not the case, then why the juice discrepancy there? If you kind of take a look so far, though, at the games that Florida has played this postseason, only once did they allow 3+ goals in back-to-back games. It was actually against Tampa Bay in round number 1. They've only allowed over 3 goals just 4 times in the whole playoffs, which is really, really fascinating. So it does feel like a Rangers team total under, which did hit in the first 2 games of the series, by the way. I mean, look, through the first 120 minutes of the series, the Rangers had only scored a goal. So ripping off a 5-piece yesterday, or 2 days ago on Sunday, was a little bit surprising. There's a Rangers team total here at minus 124. But again, I'm trying, is it empty netter? I mean, does that count as a goal allowed? There has to be a way for me to figure that out. Maybe somebody in the back knows? I don't know. Our hockey crew had some things going on tonight. All good. No worries there. Here's the thing. This team's only been beat big once, and it was by Boston. Let's see. Empty net. Oh, fantastic. It doesn't count. So why wouldn't we go a little minus 130? Save ourselves the trouble. I kind of like that. Under 2.5 goals allowed, Bobrovsky. Because I was thinking of playing the saves over, but I'm not even sure if the Rangers put enough pucks on net. The Rangers fans won't be happy with me for doing this, though. But it feels like the play. It does. Basketball, what am I doing tonight? My favorite bet is the over 18.5 combined rebounds Gafford to Gobert. These guys should be out there a ton tonight. I mean, first of all, it's an elimination game. So Rudy Gobert should be playing 40+. I know there's people that think he should be benched. I think that's insane. Do you want to give up 125 in this game, then bench Rudy? That's just craziness. Now that Lively's out, Gobert should be even more effective. He's coming off of a 29-minute night because he had 5 fouls. It was foul trouble. He played 38 in each of the first 2 games. Can he get you to 40? He gave you 40 in Game 5 in altitude against Denver. Can he get you to 40? In that game, he had 11 rebounds. Can we get that from Rudy tonight? I think we can. And can we get a postseason high for Gafford with Lively out? I think we can. I like attacking minutes. I think that's what I'm doing here. I'm going over 18.5. I'm also playing Cat plus 4.5 points against Kyrie Irving. I like the Kyrie under, but I think Karl could have a huge game if his efficiency even by chance clicks. I don't think it's being I get it. He's averaging 18 field goal attempts a game in the series. He was averaging 13 in the first 2 rounds, under that. We're getting 18 a night from Cat. He needs one efficient game to flirt with a 30 ball, really. Also, there is a part of me that thinks this game could get blowouty. Either side. I'm torn on the side here. I really am. I'm kind of happy with either result. The Dallas future comes in with a Mavs win tonight. A Minnesota win gets us another road victory, and I still trust the Dallas future. So I'm torn on who wins this game. But if it's blowouty, you'd rather have plus 4.5 if minutes start getting cut for people. So I'm looking to Cat plus the 4.5 points here, and that's what I'm on NBA-wise. Baseball-wise, upcoming, Rangers money line, Yankees money line, Mariners money line, Seager Dinger Tuesday, Soto Dinger Tuesday. Best bet, Louis Arise, over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs, minus 120. Lefty against Luzardo. We love it. Luzardo here. Let's Louis gets on. Inning 1. This is first half cash, baby. That's what we talk about. Let's make it happen here. Up next, it's In Game Live.